My name is Gary Nickelson, and I joined AAML in May of 1992. That'd be more than 30 years ago. And I was the president of AAML 2008 to 2009. And I'm from Texas.
Okay, Texas chapter. And
Yes.
And can you tell us why you became involved in the American Academy?
Sure. At least in my day, that was what you were expected to do. If you were going to be a top level, if you will, family lawyer, you needed to be a member of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. They were recognized then, as I assume they still are really, as the preeminent family law organization in the country. And so once you became a member, you were going to be recognized, if you will, as a preeminent family lawyer. And that was the starting point of it. Plus the fact that Tom Vick, my good friend, who's been with me throughout my entire career, of course, he had become a member the year before me. And so I thought, well, I can't let him get ahead of me. So I need to hurry up and join. And I did.
What is your fondest memory and your proudest accomplishment from your time in the American Academy?
Well, I had lots of fond memories and lots of wonderful times. You look back on it now, I look back on it now, and it's one of the greatest times of all is when you are actively in the American Academy and you're working on projects with people. And I think one of the greatest things about the American Academy is you get to meet so many great lawyers and their spouses and their families from all over the United States, and you get to work with them and you get to have close, long-lasting, lifetime relationships. And that's one of the things that I think is great about the American Academy. Fond memories, oh gosh, I have tons of them. One that comes to mind is many, many, many years ago. This is before most people that would ever see this were in the American Academy, or maybe even lawyers. Mike McCurley came up to me and said, we're going to have a party in Cancun at the spring meeting because Texas and New York are sponsoring it because they want to get Michael Ostro, who's going to be the president, and the next president behind him was going to be McCurley. And so everybody was on ground zero for New York and Texas. And he said, you're going to work with this guy named Alton Abramowitz. And I thought to myself, don't have a clue who he is. It was a great beginning of a friendship. Alton and I pulled that off, and it was one of the best parties that I ever remember us having. New York and Texas, and Alton and I are still great friends, and his wife Susan and all of his family that we met. And that's the kind of thing that happens to you in the American Academy. When I became president, I guess it was the mortgage boom had gone downhill in 2008 on all those subprime mortgages that had been flying off the shelf like hotcakes. And all of a sudden, nobody could sell their house, or if they did sell their house, it was for a value that was way below what they thought it ought to be. And so when you're getting a divorce, one of the major assets that people have, of course, is their house. And we went through a period there where having the house was a bad thing because you had to make the payments. And if you didn't make the payments, you were going to be out out of the doorstep, plus the fact that people were staying together because there was a huge amount of layoffs. And so somebody would say, well, I'm going to file divorce. And people would say, well, I'm not leaving. So we're going to live together for a while because I'm afraid, if I get out of this house and I get laid off, I'm going to be homeless. So it was a weird period for divorces and a weird period economically in our country. So one of my fondest moments was that's not me, but my name is right in here. I was interviewed by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and everybody else because the advertising people loved me because I could come up with sort of bizarre quotes. And so they asked me about, divorce. And I said, well, usually everybody's fighting to be the one who gets the house. And now nobody wants the dead cow anymore. And so that got me above the fold on the New York Times and Newsweek and the Wall Street Journal. And it was a lot of fun because, it was true. It was true. Us Texans are probably pretty colloquial, but we at least can turn a word or two. And that was a lot of fun. And then all the times that I had, all of the meetings that I attended, and I know that's one of those things that people like meetings and I hate meetings. When you're the president, the good news is you get to pick where the meetings are. And so I had a guy, a gentleman that I knew, gotten to know through the AML, Carl Murray from Ohio. And I always wanted to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we had a meeting in Cleveland and we had a great time. And everybody enjoyed Cleveland. Cleveland's a wonderful city, no matter what you hear. It's a great city. And so those are the kinds of things that we did. We also all spent a lot of long hours in meetings, hammering out things. We were obviously talking about the test, the national test in those days. They've been talking about the national test before I got there. They've been talking about the national test since I left. So it's always part of it. But the best thing about my time in the American Academy was meeting these lifelong friends that live all over the United States. I could name a whole bunch of them, and you get to know them very, very well, and you get to know their families. And whenever you go anywhere, they're always there if you want to get together. It's a welcoming group of people. It really, really is. And that's one of the highlights, I think, of being a member of the American Academy. To tell you how this thing works, it's a slow process. Even in those days, it was a slow process. I became a member in 1991. I was president of the American Academy Texas chapter, which I got these really nice boots in 2001, and it still took me until 2008 to become president. So that's about 17 years. And that's probably pretty normal for most folks back in my day. And it may still be for people who are striving to go for it. I was also very happy at that time to be the fourth person who had been the president of the AAML from Texas. There was Don Fullenwider, there was Mike McCurley, Lindsay Short, and myself, later to be joined by Susan Myers. We finally got a female in there and lighten up the mood a little bit. But no, it was really an honor. It's always been an honor for me to be the president of the American Academy because one of the things that people in my area, North Texas or anywhere in Texas, they call me all the time because they want to know who are the really good lawyers in this situation, or I've met this lawyer. What do you think about him? And you have such a wealth of knowledge of lawyers everywhere, all over the United States, who they are, what they do, who they work with, and what their reputation is. And that's a real wonderful asset to have, if you will, because you meet a lot of lawyers that way, and you're able to recommend really good lawyers to people who need that help. So I thought that was always a great thing.
And let me ask you, you have talked about some benefits of membership. That's another question. What are there any other benefits other than what you've already told us? If you were going to tell a potential applicant why they should join?
Well, again, I think today, just like it was back in 1992 when I became a member, the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, because of its sort of rigorous standards to get in, I think is looked upon as the premier family law organization in the country. And being allied, of course, to some degree with the International Academy, there's so much you can put on a resume. When you put something like that on a resume, the people who are trying to refer things to you or talk about how good you are, that says it all. Okay. That really says it all. And I think that's important. You know, in Texas, we were able to get exempted from the national test only because our state test is so rigorous that it had more at that time than when I got certified and than they had on the national test. But I think that sets us apart from everybody else. You know, most organizations, not just lawyer organizations, but most organizations of any type, if you want to pay the dues and show up to the meetings, by God, you can be a member. Well, not so with us. We're going to put you through a rigorous screening of the members that are already in the American Academy. And then we're going to let you pass a test to prove that you know the subject matter, you know the ethics, and you're somebody we would like to have as a fellow in the American Academy. So I think that's a real plus. And I think that's something we need to keep. And I think it's something we ought to not be ashamed of, but proud of, very proud of.
And what do you think is one of the Academy's major accomplishments thus far?
Well, I think we've done a lot of things that are really, really great for lawyers and for society in general. I think when you raise, the level of the esteem, if you will, of the public in lawyers in general, since we're sometimes rated below used car salesmen, it's kind of nice to know what we have done to put us at the top of the chain where people look upon us as experts. And I've met lots of wonderful experts and going to all the seminars that I've been to that the AAML has put on. And you meet the very top people in the profession, whether they're lawyers or experts, CPAs, psychologists, whatever they are, you're going to meet the very top people. And they look upon you as an equal, and we look upon them as an equal. And so I think it just raises the whole level of the practice, which I think is very, very important for everybody who wants to practice family law, because family law has historically been looked down upon. You know, anybody can do a divorce. Well, they really can't. They can get somebody divorced, but good Lord knows what's going to happen to their children and to their property, and who's going to get a fair deal and who's not going to get a fair deal. So I think that we've done a wonderful job about that. And I think we continue to do a wonderful job. And I think that's the highlight of what we've done for, you know, society in general. We now have a group of lawyers, of which many are members, that you can look and you can have confidence that if you hire somebody who is a member of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, they're ethical, they're knowledgeable, and they have great resources to other people who are at the top of their profession. And I think that's what an organization ought to be doing for their profession.
And lastly, do you have any suggestions for what the Academy can do for itself or its fellows that it hasn't done yet?
Yeah, it's a really hard question because I don't really know that there's a lot more that we can do, but I'm sure there is. Meaning today, our technology's changed. Um, you know, everything has changed about the practice of law since I started practicing. And I think that's probably the number one thing we can do is we can keep our people up to date about the technology and how to interact with their fellow lawyers. But basically, I think taking positions on different issues when they come up, when we're asked to, is very important. I think we need to it's hard to get a consensus because not everybody thinks the same, and that's okay. And not everybody views things the same. But I certainly think that we've done lots of things over the years to take positions about, you know, child rearing, you know, division of property, whether you call it community property or you call it separate property or you call it marital property. We've done a lot in the area of premarital agreements, postmarital agreements. We've led the field in all those things. And I think we can continue to do that and be a leader in the things that make people who are married getting a divorce feel comfortable that they're going to get a square deal, that they're going to get a fair shake, and it's all going to be on the up and up with the very best ethics that anybody could ever put forth. And I think that's what we stand for. And I think that's what we ought to continue to do. And I think that does help society. There's a lot of people that I've encountered, who they might not have wanted a divorce, but they need a divorce. But they also want to hold their heads up high when they walk out and that they got treated well by the judiciary, by the fellow lawyers, by the opposing lawyer. And all that's really important to our profession. I will tell you that, in Texas, we sort of have a standard, if you will. Bill Coons, who before my time, but I got to know him, became friends with him, even though he was in the latter stages of his practice, said what sums it up for all of us Texas lawyers, as well as I think most lawyers in general. And that is, all my friends are lawyers. All my best friends are family lawyers. We're a real tight knit group, and we need to stand together for fairness and equality and treating our clients, whether they're our clients or the opposing client, with dignity and honor. And you can get your job done, and you don't have to be a jackass about it. You don't have to be, the meanest, toughest person on the street. That's really not going to get you very far in a judicial situation, in a trial. You may think it will, but it won't, because judges want to be fair too. So I think we just need to continue promoting that we stand for equality in all areas.